Imagine a city where people suddenly start dancing, and they can't stop. For days, weeks, even months, their bodies move uncontrollably. Some danced themselves to death, while others collapsed from sheer exhaustion. This bizarre and deadly phenomenon went down in history as one of the strangest epidemics ever, the dancing plague. In the summer of 1518 in Strasbourg, this strange event began, not just as a physical affliction, but as a social, psychological, and even mystical mystery. It all started when a single woman took to the streets, dancing alone, and soon hundreds joined her, plunging the city into chaos. In this video, we'll take you into the streets of that time, explore eyewitness accounts, examine the conditions of the era, and uncover the theories modern scientists have proposed. Get ready to witness history's most bizarre and deadly dance. The summer of 1518 was extraordinarily hot and dry across much of Europe. Strasbourg, located in what is now eastern France, was an important trading center during the late Middle Ages. The city had a population of about 20,000, most of whom made their living through agriculture and crafts. Its location along trade routes meant a constantly bustling economic life, but by the early 1500s, Europe was already shaken by disease, famine, and religious conflict. These factors further strained the already tense psychology of Strasbourg's inhabitants. At that time, medical knowledge was limited, and people often interpreted diseases as divine punishment or the influence of evil spirits. Malaria, plague, typhus, and other epidemics were constant threats. To protect themselves, people turned to religious rituals, spells, or various mystical practices. Social pressures, economic hardships, and physical strain combined to place a tremendous burden on the human psyche. In July 1518, as a result of these tensions, events spiraled out of control when a woman began dancing in the middle of the street. Her name was Frau Trophäa. At first, she danced alone, but she moved continuously in a rhythmic, almost hypnotic manner. Onlookers were initially stunned, while some, out of curiosity, joined her. This small participation quickly escalated into hundreds of people dancing. The city authorities initially downplayed the situation, viewing the dancers as temporarily mad or overly exhausted. But the situation rapidly became serious. People began collapsing from sheer exhaustion, and some died of heart attacks or fatigue. Records indicate that the number of dancers surged, and the streets became completely filled. Authorities tried to direct the dancers to religious or health centers for rest. Some documents mention that professional musicians and performance spaces were used for this purpose, aiming to channel people's energy in a controlled way. However, this strategy backfired completely, and the number of dancers continued to rise. Historians suggest several possible causes behind this epidemic. One theory is social stress and mass hysteria. Strasbourg's population lived through wars, famines, and epidemics, and when their bodies and minds could no longer cope, they may have expressed this stress physically. Another theory points to foodborne toxins. Some experts propose that mold-related toxins in the bread and grains consumed at the time may have triggered the urge to dance. Some contemporary witnesses describe the dancers as almost hypnotized, their eyes staring blankly ahead. They noted that many exceeded the limits of what the human body could endure, dancing non-stop for weeks or even months. Even from a modern perspective, this is astonishing. The dancing plague became not just a physical, but also a social crisis. People were gripped by fear. Some fled, while others continued to watch. Everyone struggled to understand this strange phenomenon. Was it divine punishment, the work of evil spirits, or a case of mass hysteria pushing human minds and bodies to the brink? By mid-July 1518, the streets of Strasbourg had become a scene of utter chaos. The dance that Frau Trophäa had started alone had quickly spread to hundreds of people. Initially, only a few wandered the streets with rhythmic movements, but soon nearly the entire city centre was filled with dancing individuals. The public watched in a mix of fear and astonishment, while some feared joining in themselves. Daily life had almost completely come to a halt. Markets emptied, workplaces closed, and places of worship fell silent. The city's economy and social order began to shake. According to historical records, dancers sometimes moved continuously for days, weeks, or even months. Their bodies could no longer endure. Some collapsed in the streets, others died of heart attacks or severe injuries while dancing. Although the exact death toll is unknown, historians estimate that between 50 and 400 people may have lost their lives. City authorities attempted unconventional interventions. They directed dancers to churches, specially prepared squares, or communal worship and music events. The goal was to allow people to expend their energy in a controlled manner and halt the spread of the epidemic. Professional musicians were called, and dancing with musical accompaniment was encouraged. However, this effort backfired entirely. The music and collective dancing drew even more participants. The streets grew increasingly crowded, and the number of dancers reached uncontrollable levels. Historical witnesses described the dancers' condition in alarming terms. One chronicler described them as people with empty eyes, trembling bodies who never stopped. Another noted that some dancers collapsed in the streets, falling to the ground and never rising again. Some accounts indicate that people could dance non-stop for months, and this intense physical activity led many to death. Others wrote that the dance seemed to occur under a hypnotic rhythm, as if individuals had lost control of their own will. Modern researchers propose several possible causes for this strange and deadly epidemic. The most widely accepted theory is mass hysteria, or a psychogenic movement disorder. Social stress, fear, and pressure may have caused people to physically express their anxieties through dancing. Strasbourg's population lived through wars, famines, and epidemics. The immense strain on mind and body may have manifested as uncontrolled collective dancing. Another theory points to ergot fungus in the bread and grains consumed by the public. This fungus can affect the nervous system, causing muscle spasms, hallucinations, and uncontrollable movements. The hot and humid conditions of that summer could have facilitated its growth in cereals. The combination of physical, chemical, and societal stresses may have produced one of history's strangest epidemics. During the plague, the city's atmosphere was terrifying. People tried to watch, flee from, or stop the dancers. Some interpreted it as divine punishment or the work of evil spirits. Constant tension and anxiety pervaded the city. Residents feared that at any moment they too might start dancing uncontrollably. The dancing plague completely disrupted Strasbourg's social fabric. As days passed, businesses remained closed, and people became physically and psychologically exhausted. Authorities were often powerless, unsure how to respond. Some historians regard this event as the strangest and deadliest example of mass hysteria in European history. In the aftermath, both citizens and authorities struggled to understand why the dancing had begun and how it could be stopped. Scholars and historians emphasize that the event was not merely a physiological phenomenon, but also a profound social and psychological crisis. Researchers believe that the 1518 dancing plague was not caused by a single factor, but rather emerged from a combination of physical, psychological, and social influences. At the time, the people of Strasbourg lived amid wars, famines, and epidemics. These conditions made daily life extremely difficult, keeping stress and fear levels persistently high. Social pressures, economic hardships, and religious concerns combined to push the physical and mental endurance of individuals to their limits. Modern psychologists suggest that social stress can trigger mass hysteria and psychogenic movement disorders. Mass hysteria occurs when stress or fear within a community manifests through physical behaviors. In Strasbourg, those who witnessed the first dancer may have begun dancing not out of conscious choice, but as a result of social influence and environmental pressure. This behavior spread like a domino effect, reaching hundreds of people in a very short time. Some scientists propose that this bizarre epidemic may have been caused by food-borne toxins. In particular, ergot fungus, which can grow on wheat and rye bread, has strong effects on the nervous system. Ergot toxins can cause muscle spasms, hallucinations, tingling sensations, and uncontrollable movements. The unusually hot and humid summer in Strasbourg could have facilitated the growth of this fungus in grains. If this theory is correct, the dancers were affected physically by toxins while also experiencing a psychological state compounded by societal stress and pressure. This combination may have led their bodies to lose control, resulting in continuous, uncontrollable dancing. Religious and social factors further intensified the phenomenon. At the time, Europeans often interpreted unexplained events as divine punishment or the work of evil spirits. In the early days of the epidemic, the public viewed the dancers as cursed or as receiving a warning from God. This may have been perceived as a social ritual or an attempt to ward off evil. In small towns, social bonds were strong. When one person displayed unusual behavior, others felt compelled to follow, adhering to social norms. As a result, the dancing plague became both a physical and psychological phenomenon. Modern research suggests that the strongest explanation involves a combination of physical and psychological factors. People in a hot, stressful, and oppressive environment may have felt an urgent need to move their bodies. When combined with rhythm, collective movement, and music, individuals may have continued dancing for long periods, as if they had lost control of their own will. The effects of ergot toxins, together with social stress, fear, and psychological pressure, may have produced one of the strangest and deadliest epidemics in history. The event remains a profound mystery for contemporary researchers. The Strasbourg dancing plague was not merely a physical illness, but also an extraordinary reflection of the human mind and the effects of social pressure. This strange dance, sustained by the loss of individual will, is remembered as one of history's most bizarre and deadly examples of mass hysteria. The epidemic continues to capture the interest of historians and scientists as a complex event studied from psychological, social, and physiological perspectives. The plague also provides a significant example for understanding social cohesion and individual behavior during panic. People shape their actions by observing others, allowing personal will to be overtaken by collective unconsciousness. Historians emphasize that the lessons of this event are not confined to the past. Mass hysteria and social stress can produce similar consequences even in the modern world. The epidemic continued for weeks, transforming the city of Strasbourg into a scene of living chaos. The streets overflowed with dancing people, while onlookers were caught between amazement and fear. Daily life came to a near standstill. Markets emptied, trade halted, and ordinary routines were completely disrupted. The city's social and economic order was severely shaken, and the population lived in uncertainty and panic. Most of the dancers were physically exhausted. Their muscles burned, their feet swelled, and their hearts strained. Some collapsed in the streets while dancing, and others fell and never rose again. Historical records suggest that hundreds of people died, with some estimates indicating that over 400 lives were lost. These numbers reveal the scale of the event and the tragedy that engulfed the city. City authorities tried various measures to regain control. Initially, they directed dancers to larger spaces, churches, squares, and specially prepared areas. People were encouraged to dance under controlled conditions with music, allowing them to expend their energy safely and, ideally, halt the epidemic. However, these efforts failed to have the desired effect. On the contrary, music and collective movement drew even more participants, and the outbreak remained uncontrollable. Each day, the number of dancers increased, filling streets and squares completely. Panic spread throughout every corner of the city. People feared passing by the dancers. Some fled, while others simply watched. There was a pervasive fear that anyone could begin dancing uncontrollably at any moment. In small towns, social pressure and collective behavior amplified this fear. People acted by observing others, joining the social rhythm, which accelerated the spread of the phenomenon. The psychological impact of the plague was profound. Witnessing such extraordinary and deadly behavior caused trauma. Days of continuous chaos took a toll on the city's mental fabric. Most of the population was exhausted both physically and psychologically, and the sense of security was deeply shaken. Children and the elderly, in particular, experienced intense fear and anxiety while observing the dancers, leaving lasting impressions in the collective memory. By the end of the epidemic, both city authorities and citizens were left with immense fatigue and trauma. Many lives had been lost, social order was severely disrupted, and the population suffered deep psychological effects. Authorities implemented measures to prevent a recurrence, focusing on rituals and social regulations to reduce stress and anxiety. Some documents note that religious leaders tried to calm the population through prayer and meditation, while communal activities were carefully controlled. Historians view the Strasbourg dancing plague not merely as a physical event, but as a social, psychological, and cultural phenomenon. The bizarre dance, sustained to the limits of human endurance, became one of history's strangest and deadliest examples of mass hysteria. The event profoundly influenced studies not only of 16th-century Strasbourg, but also of human behavior and social psychology. The memory of the dancers served as both a warning and a lesson. People witnessed the powerful effects of social stress and psychological pressure, seeing how they could push the limits of body and mind. This event remains an unsolved mystery for historians and scientists, offering a unique example of human nature and collective behavior. The plague also provides an important case for studying social cohesion and collective action. People moved by observing one another, and individual will give way to collective unconsciousness. Historians emphasize that the lessons from this event are not limited to the past. Mass hysteria and social stress can produce similar outcomes even today. This tragic and strange episode in the streets of Strasbourg demonstrates just how powerful human psychology and social bonds can be. Even centuries later, the dancing plague remains a profound mystery for historians, psychologists, and social scientists. The extraordinary events in Strasbourg should not be seen merely as a physical illness or a coincidence. They are studied as a social, psychological, and cultural phenomenon. Modern research suggests that this bizarre epidemic emerged from a combination of factors: social stress, mass hysteria, toxins, and religious beliefs all played powerful roles in influencing human behavior. Many scholars consider the event a classic example of mass hysteria. Social pressure, fear, and collective stress can lead people to engage in movements they do not consciously intend, but carry out physically. Surrounded by war, famine, and disease, the people of Strasbourg may have been triggered by the initial dancer, creating a chain reaction that spread rapidly. In modern psychology, this is referred to as social contagion. People imitate the behavior of those around them, acting beyond their individual will. Another theory points to the influence of food-borne toxins. Ergot fungus, which can grow on wheat and rye, has potent effects on the nervous system. Muscle spasms, hallucinations, and uncontrollable movements closely resemble the symptoms seen in the dancers. The hot and humid summer conditions likely encourage the growth of the fungus in grains, allowing physical effects to combine with psychological stresses. Religious and cultural factors also played a key role in shaping the phenomenon. At the time, people often interpreted unexplained events as divine punishment or the influence of evil spirits. The dancers' behavior may have been seen as part of a social ritual or an attempt to appease a curse. In small towns, social pressure was strong. When one person acted, others felt compelled to follow. This amplified collective behavior and expanded the scale of the epidemic. Historians emphasize that the lessons from this event are not limited to the past. Human psychology and social behavior can be powerfully influenced under stress and pressure. Mass hysteria and social panic can have similar effects even in modern societies. By observing and imitating each other, individuals may lose personal will, giving rise to collective crises. The Strasbourg dancing plague has endured in cultural memory, referenced in literature, art, and historical scholarship. It reveals the fragile and complex nature of human behavior. This tragic event, born from the intersection of physical, psychological, and social factors, stands as one of history's strangest and deadliest mass phenomena. In conclusion, the 1518 dancing plague is not just a curious story from the past. It is a unique case for understanding human behavior, social interaction, and the effects of psychological pressure. The strange and deadly dance in the streets of Strasbourg remains one of history's most unforgettable and instructive events, continuing to be studied, debated, and remembered with awe. It teaches how powerful social pressure, psychological stress, and collective behavior can be, offering enduring lessons from the past to modern societies. After the epidemic ended, the people of Strasbourg struggled for a long time to overcome the effects of the tragedy. Hundreds of lives had been lost, and the city's daily life had been severely disrupted. Residents were exhausted both physically and psychologically, bearing the trauma of the events. The population sought to understand the causes of what had happened, and took measures to prevent a similar disaster from occurring again. Authorities developed various strategies to prevent uncontrolled behavior among the populace. Religious ceremonies were organized to calm the public, and communal rituals and events were brought under control to restore social order. City leaders attempted to create designated spaces and time periods where dancers could safely expend their energy. These measures helped re-establish a sense of collective awareness and security, but the fear of the events lingered in the public memory for a long time. The impact of the plague extended beyond the physical and psychological. It also left deep cultural and social marks. People saw the episode as both a warning and a lesson. They observed how social stress and mass hysteria could lead to deadly consequences. They also gained insight into how individuals could be influenced by social pressure and collective behavior. This experience became a foundational example for studies in social psychology and public health, not only in Strasbourg but across Europe. Modern historians and psychologists draw many lessons from the 1518 dancing plague, both at the societal and individual levels. The human mind can react unpredictably under social pressure and stress. The body can respond with uncontrolled actions, and such collective behaviors can pose serious health risks. For this reason, the event is considered not merely an intriguing historical story, but also a significant case for understanding human psychology and social dynamics. Today, the epidemic remains an important reference for researchers. When examining collective behavior, mass panic, and episodes of hysteria, the events in Strasbourg serve as a warning that transcends time. This episode, revealing the fragile yet highly susceptible aspects of human nature, continues to be a valuable subject of study for historians, psychologists, and social scientists alike. In conclusion, the 1518 dancing plague stands as one of the strangest and most instructive events in human history. The deadly dance that unfolded in the streets of Strasbourg offers a lasting lesson. Social stress, mass hysteria, and psychological pressure exert a powerful influence on human behavior. Through this tragic and bizarre event, people gained a deeper understanding of the importance of both societal and individual psychology.